pedigree car. Jonathan Luna is suddenly like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm going to get attacked. I'm just going to get attacked.
Yeah.
But it's such a screwy idea, and it took him so long to go about it that it doesn't seem like it's a real idea. If somebody does this, you would think they would just like drive off into the hood and cut themselves up and then dial 911 and say, I've been attacked, because that's an easy way to get out of it.
Yeah.
This seems like a long drive and a lot of stuff to do before going and starting his sympathy campaign.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would have made more sense to really, just go down and pick a fight with some homeless guys and get beat up real bad, and then go like just throw yourself down in an alley where the police will find you.
I was going to say, for a guy like Luna in Baltimore, it probably would not be so hard to get real beat up.
Probably,
for real.
Probably not that hard at all.
And actually, probably less painful than cutting yourself 36 times.
On the hands, yes.
Yeah.
It's illogical.
Yeah,
To quote Spock.
This one is not impossible at all, but it's a little bit of a stretch, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so we've done murder, we've done accident, what's left? Suicide. So we already talked a bit about some of the stressors in Luna's life that might have made him want to take his own life. He had, again, we're talking possible marriage issues, debt, legal jeopardy for the missing $38,000. His boss didn't like him. His job was maybe in jeopardy also. And I haven't gotten into it too deeply yet, but let's talk about this now, which was his very bad day, that day of December 3rd in court.
Oh, okay.
He had a rough day. As I said, the trial of Smith and Poindexter began December 1st, Monday. And from the very beginning, they held from them by the prosecution, which is they found out about Warren. They knew Warren was going to be a witness.
And by the way, for folks who aren't aware, especially those that don't live in this country, the rule of law when you're on trial is that the prosecution shares its information with the defense.
Yeah,
you can't keep things hidden.
Yeah, this is called discovery, the discovery process.
Yes.
And they can't withhold stuff. That's a big no-no.
I believe the defense can to a degree, but not the prosecution.
No,
because they're the ones proving it.
Yeah. So they've got to, because everything they're going to throw at them, they have to show them ahead of time so they can,
defend against it.
Come up with an argument against it.
Right.
Right.
So our boy is being a jerk and going around and selling drugs and doing all of the other
up
things.
The neighborhood, possibly, there's some intimations that he might have murdered a person or two.
What a great thing to do while you're wearing a wire.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he did that when he was wearing the wire. And he also wasn't wearing his ankle bracelet either. He took that off whenever he felt like it. Again.
It's funny. I always thought those things couldn't just be removed, but maybe it was an early model.
Yeah, apparently they can if you know what you're doing. Yeah. But the fact that Warren had broken the rules of his plea agreement, and also the fact that he was a paid informant. Did I mention that he was paid?
Not yet.
Did I? Yeah, he was getting paid for this. I mean, all those things actually, those are relevant to the prosecutor because they go to his credibility as a prosecution witness. But the defense had not been told about this stuff. Well, so they made a stink about it from day one. And as of day two, they actually were starting to raise the possibility that this constituted actually a big cover-up by the FBI and the Department of Justice of Warren's behavior. The judge in this case, his name was William Quarles, a federal judge, basically said that the trial should continue because they still, despite Warren's lack of credibility as a witness, they still had all the tapes, so there's still some evidence. So
it's admissible evidence.
Yeah, might as well go ahead with this stuff now. And now, of course, the jury has been informed as to Warren's transgressions while he was an informant, and so we'll just continue. And you can bring it up in appeal, guys. And so they went ahead with that. On the morning of December 3rd, FBI agent Steve Skinner, remember him? He testified. Agent Skinner, yeah. And he let slip that another thing about Warren Grace, which I just mentioned, he was a paid informant. Which again, this is the first time that the defense found out about this. So you can imagine they hit the roof. We're very upset about not having been informed of this because, I mean, obviously, if the guy's getting paid, he's got an incentive to just say whatever the prosecution wants, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it damages his credibility with the jury, or at least it should, right?
He becomes a yes man at that point.
Yeah.
Or puppet.
Yeah, so at this point, of course, Skinner went on to actually admit to all of Warren's violations of this plea deal, which they had turned a blind eye to. The defense at this point made a motion for dismissal of charges based on prosecutorial misconduct, and again, on this FBI prosecution cover-up of all these crimes of this guy, really, who should not have been an informant. He should have been arrested and locked up.
Yeah.
And Judge Quarles refused to dismiss, but he did agree to schedule an investigation into the way Luna and the FBI had handled their informant. So this is not good news for Jonathan Luna, and also for FBI agent Skinner. Definitely could be a career-ending kind of thing, this investigation into the informant, but also the fact that he had basically withheld evidence.
He was gaming the system.
Yeah, and so...
It looks like he was gaming the system anyway.
Yeah, no, it's prosecutorial misconduct, really. And so Jonathan Luna started that week, just a few days before, with this easy slam-dunk drug case, and now 2 days later, it's blowing up in his face, big time. And I'm not a lawyer, but I think that he could have probably been disbarred for his conduct in withholding that information.
Possible.
Seems like,
it's possible. So we're talking losing his job and just a loss of livelihood. He can't be a lawyer anymore. Professional disgrace. And probably a few other people in the attorney's office, the FBI, were also feeling a little bit of heat. I'm sure Agent Skinner was not happy about how this whole thing was turning out.
Yeah, he didn't want to go work at Best Buy.
No, probably not. And so this thing had to be made to go away. And this is why Jonathan Luna approached the defense lawyers a little bit later over the lunch break and offered them a plea deal, which would solve everybody's problem, right? But of course, Poindexter, remember, he's the guy who's going to be tried for murder. Yeah, he knew he was holding a strong hand, and so he demanded the charges against Poindexter be dropped for murder. And Luna agreed to this, but there was a hitch, which is that federal law makes it illegal, essentially, to plea bargain away a case that is murder if it is drug-related. So,
So that couldn't have gone away.
He couldn't actually make the case go away that easy, yeah. And so he was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, and unfortunately for him, he couldn't really gloss over the drug angle of this whole case because he was going to prosecute the murder, and he'd already built his case. He'd already submitted briefs and documents and all kinds of stuff documenting
through the discovery process, right?
Yeah, documenting that this murder was indeed very, very much drug related.
Right.
So he's got to square this circle somehow. Judge Quarles, was informed of this pending plea agreement, told Luna to have it ready in the morning for him at 9:30 the next day. So he goes back to his office to do a little creative writing, but like I said, it appears he was having a little trouble squaring that circle because when he left his office later that night, the Smith agreement was all done. The Poindexter agreement was only about half done. They were found the next day on his computer by another lawyer in the office. And so Jonathan Luna perhaps was looking at professional ruin with the way this case was going. Now, could this possibility of professional ruin and loss of livelihood, could it drive a man to kill himself?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Could.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, a lot of it depends on all kinds of stuff, imponderables. I mean, we don't know, but I would say that it was, definitely entirely possible that his very, very bad day was the thing that sort of tipped him over
the edge.
into the whole suicide thing.
Yeah.
That and working at Best Buy.
Yeah, the possibility of working at Best Buy.
It's not the worst job ever.
No, probably not. I've actually
Walmart greeter, that's the worst job.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't know. I think, the guys who have to go down and dig through poop are probably a bad job.
Oh, say it. Yeah.
Yeah,
but they're paid really well.
They do get paid
and you
well.
gotta prove that's a union job, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's off track.
I think I would rather dig through poop all day than stand in the door of Walmart. Give me the poop. Yeah. Oh, anyway, back to our case here. As for the plea agreements, they were found on Luna's computer, as I said, the next morning on the 4th. Another lawyer in the office quickly finished writing the Poindexter agreement, delivered to the court. It was signed. Everybody lived happily ever after.
Except Jonathan Luna.
Except Jonathan Luna. Even if the plea deal was, a little hinky. It was kind of
pretty illegal.
Kind of illegal.
That kind of puts a nail in the suicide theory because if a second lawyer came in and had to finish the plea deal in a couple of hours and it was still accepted, and they didn't know about Luna at that point.
They did not yet know. I don't believe they knew about Luna
Right, so it
yet.
wasn't as if they were motivated, oh, well, let's just get this taken care of because the guy died. Then, well, it proves that the drive of, oh, God, this whole thing's going to fall apart. Maybe, I mean, if he's as good of a lawyer as he appeared to have been, he may have known that he could push that through.
I feel like sometimes all it takes is a new set of eyes to come up with the way to square that. Or round the circle, square the circle, or whatever it is. I mean, you know, sometimes it can seem like, you know, in his brain, on top of everything else, it's like, oh my God, there's no way I can make this legal. I'm already in trouble and kind of, you know, in bad shape with things maybe being illegal. If I push this through and it's also illegal, it just adds to the pile of stuff that people can bring against me. I don't know how to figure this out. And then a new lawyer comes in and is like, I don't know, this is an easy solution in my brain, but other people would never think of it.
Well, and also, it may be, if these rumors are true that Luna's boss didn't like him and was out to get him, then Luna's boss obviously would catch this.
Would have been looking for a reason.
And it would be the sort of thing that he could actually, you know, I don't know how much of a stink you want to make this as embarrassing to your office. So it's one of the things that it would get Luna fired, but the other guy, the other lawyer, probably talked to the same boss and said, gee, boss, what do you want to do? And the boss probably said, just make this go away.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is that I know, I can't remember the boss's name. It's Biagio, or there's a Biagio in there or something. But, I mean, he didn't like Luna, so it may be that Luna realized that even if the plea deal could be completed and go through, the boss was going to fire him. But at that point, if the boss fires him, while it might be a bit of professional disgrace, it's not professional ruin because he still would have his license.
In theory,
He would still be able to practice law.
Well, unless the boss decided to, say, make a stink out of the whole withholding of evidence and just say, look, I'm going to refer you to whatever they have. They have their office of
IA, internal affairs of some kind.
Like the office, Office of Professional Responsibility, like the FBI has.
I suspect, that if you know, you go and say, yeah, I got fired from my last job because I withheld a lot of evidence and wrote an illegal plea deal. That's going to throw up some flags.
Most guys that are in
you're going to better call Saul yourself.
Just like Willie McRae, people who get fired from those kind of jobs, they go into private practice. Because then you don't have to tell anybody that. You say, I left working for the U.S. government because it's a crock and a crooked system and blah, 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 flat earth.
It was all just bureaucracy and putting away poor people, and I hated it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I love the poor. Now that'll be $500. Well, let's go back to the murder theory for a second. So we already talked about
circling back on this.
We're going to circle back for us just a second because there's been a lot of, I don't know how much, but I know that there's actually been at least one book written about this case. A lot of intimations out there that perhaps it might have been FBI, etc., DOJ, some people in the government who murdered Luna for the simple reason that, there was this big, explosive, scandalous cluster that had come up in this trial, and it was going to, because of the defense had found out about Warren Grace's conduct, and the fact of the matter is that they basically protected a real menace to society out there in the street, instead of arresting the guy. That's a little scandalous. And maybe some people wanted to keep that covered up, and maybe Jonathan Luna basically said, guys, I can't cover this up in good conscience. I can't do that. And so they decided, well, okay, Jonathan, what we're going to do is find somebody else to write that agreement, and we're going to whack you.
So you have turned what you initially stated as revisiting the murder theory into a giant government cover-up theory.
A giant conspiracy.
So you've actually added your fourth theory in, sir.
Well, the reason it's murder though, but the reason I just bring it up is I don't want any of our listeners to start doing a little reading on this and just think, wow, they totally missed this whole government conspiracy thing. But I picked up on it. So if you look at that, I mean, I could see where if Luna was not going to be a team player, they said, well, what are we going to do about this? And so they arranged for him to be killed, and then they sort of, they pursue the investigation as good as well as they can, and then they just start leaking all this stuff to the press, as I mentioned before.
It's a smear campaign.
Kind of a smear campaign, and then it's like, if they find any evidence of any actual murder at the site, they just sort of quietly, ditch that, and they keep leaking stuff, and then finally it's just like, it must have been suicide. That's the best we can come up with.
Okay.
So that's kind of the theory that's out there.
But he was right. I mean, he was actively writing.
Yeah, it might have been.
The plea bargain, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, he was. I think but you never know. He might have had a change of heart. He had at least one conversation on the phone with somebody that we don't know who it was. So he might have had a change of heart. But here's the deal: is that if he had a change of heart and just said, "Look, I just can't write this," then somebody could have said, somebody else from his office or whoever could have said, "Okay, here's what you do, Jonathan. We just need you to keep your mouth shut. You don't have to write it. All you got to do, go to the men's room, go to the dirtiest toilet, drink a cup of water out of that toilet, then go to the ER, and because you're going to be sick as a dog, and you've got a credible
You've
excuse."
basically become indisposed, and
You'll become
therefore
indisposed.
cannot be responsible.
And then somebody else will step in and write it for you. And we'll make the whole thing go away.
Yeah.
That would have been an easier way rather than in the countryside stabbing him repeatedly with a knife, and trying to find a good suitable spot for the final coup de grace.
Yeah, it does seem to me that if the FBI were gonna kill him,
Yeah.
they would have done a better job of it.
You would think.
Or like a cleaner job.
It seems like a really random, weird murder, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But it's just, it's all
And
really
also,
random and weird.
Well, and here's the weird thing is the guy's office was in freaking Baltimore, for Christ's sakes. I mean, it's one of those cities that alternates with like Detroit and New Orleans and a few other places, the murder capital.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't just take him out again to like one of the worst neighborhoods and shoot him once.
Make it look like a mugging.
And
yeah, I know. That would have been a much better way to do it.
I still don't think that it was an accident, and I still don't think it was a suicide.
No, I agree.
Because of the stuff that I have read about, the cuts on his hands, I'm not 100% in agreement with that, but I can get behind that maybe he did that to himself. So I would think that if your hands are bleeding, you're going to start having a hard time hanging onto a knife just because it's going to be slippery. But let's just ignore that. The fact that there are some cuts on his head and his back that seem to be hard to get to, and his genitals, because again, no dude that isn't into that kind of pleasure pain stuff is just gonna willingly start playing with his junk with a knife to try and to misdirect it. Like, that seems like that's something someone does when they are when they are trying to make someone suffer.
Yeah, but
it's
I
torture.
Guess it is if it happened, right? Because that's the big problem with this case, is that we don't know if that's actually what happened. It could be that it was just a bunch of kind of shallow cuts, around, and then a slip and you cut your carotid artery, or maybe you do it unintentionally, but there's no real way to know.
Yeah.
Right now, someday in the future, ideally we'll know.
Yeah,
because if that is the case, absolutely, of course. Even without that, I do think it was probably a murder, but
yeah, I just don't know why the mortician would have any incentive to lie about somebody slicing up his ghibli bits.
Yeah. I don't know. This is one of the irritating things is that law enforcement is still keeping it open. I'm not sure why. It might be that there is something really hinky going on with law enforcement, so they're keeping it open so they don't have to allow people to look at their files.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There is a lot of conspiracy stuff about that.
Yeah.
And another odd thing, too, is that in all the leaks that have come out, all the statements that have come out from law enforcement about all these things and all these reasons that he might have killed himself, they never once mentioned the Smith-Poindexter trial as a possible motivator for a suicide. Interesting that, don't you think? Yeah. Maybe they're trying to spare him a little professional embarrassment. I don't know, but it seems to me that his bad day in court was as strong a motivator for suicide as most other things that were going on in his life. And they didn't even mention it, ever.
Yeah, or
it's kind of interesting.
A murder or something.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'm going to come down on the side of suicide just because I'm feeling, kind of obstreperous today.
Okay.
Hi. Well, okay, that's it for this week. If you've got any theories of your own, well, you can contact us at our email, which is thinkingsidewayspod thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. We also have a website, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, in case you didn't know that, where you can find our episodes, and you can find links to go, buy merch and cool stuff like that. We have links to our Instagram and
all of our social media.
All of our social media, we got links there, yeah. So, yes, go to the website. And you can also download and listen to us on iTunes, where you can subscribe. You can give us a rating and a review. High rating, great review. And you can stream us, of course, from anywhere. And most importantly of all, Stitcher Premium.